Hi, I'm Carrie Ford Moranci. I'm the co-owner of Firefly Counseling Collective. I'm going to do a podcast today with my husband on couples counseling. Jonathan is joining us. Say hello.
Hello.
I just did an introduction of myself. And so I believe this is going to be our fifth podcast. And we've done them, Sarah and I, Amanda, and myself have done them on various topics that we're really fascinated by in counseling. And so couples counseling is something I'm really comfortable doing. I've been offering couples counseling for over 5 years since being in private practice. And I thoroughly enjoy it because I've used a lot of my own research, but really a lot of my own experience, not only in our relationship and marriage, but also the various couples counseling that we've done. So I don't know if you remember, or I can review for us, but I'd like this to be a two-sided conversation, like what different times in our lives that we've actually benefited from couples counseling. So did you want to speak to that, or do you want me to go through them?
Well, I remember, I think the first time we did it would have been, I'm going to guess around 1998-ish, maybe. And it was in Newton, Mass.
Oh,
It was a woman in Newton, Mass. Before what?
Before we got engaged.
Right. So I know. So it was before we moved from the Boston area, and it was in Newton. And I'm guessing because of that. I'm guessing we moved in '99. I'm guessing it was probably '98, maybe even '97. But I'm thinking maybe '98 is when that was happening. We did that for a brief period with that woman. Met with her. I don't remember what the frequency was, but met with her for a little while at least.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah. So that's that if I'm remembering correctly, that would have been the first time that we did that.
Yeah, we were dating. I thought it would be helpful. You had actually done couples counseling with an ex, which
Mhm.
was shocking to me at the time. I had never engaged in couples counseling. I'd had one disastrous family session with my family growing up in high school, but outside of that, had not ever done therapy with anyone else. So was really nervous about it. But it was a really positive experience. I believe we did it for a year. I think you're right, in 98, and stopped because we did move in 99. So that might have
Okay.
been it.
Okay,
But we
could be.
met
Yeah.
it, if not every 2 weeks. And I just remember it being completely affirming and really helpful for our relationship because it made me feel like we were in a really good, positive relationship, and it increased our sex life. So
Mm,
that was fun.
yeah. Okay.
What else? When else did we do it?
So I'm wondering if I'm missing something, but
There was one through EAP, which was most helpful when you worked for the city. That was really helpful going through EAP.
oh, right.
And
Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right.
again, very affirming. She literally
Mhm.
sat us on the couch and said she had never had a couple who spoke so respectfully toward each other. Because
Right,
you and
right,
I literally turned toward each other on the couch and talked to each other. And she said that was highly unusual, which was surprising to me.
right,
And
right.
then the other went back and forth with me for individual, but for a time I just saw him for couples counseling, and that was wonderful.
You're talking about Gil?
Yeah, but we're not going
Yeah.
to name names.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Was there
Um,
anything? I don't remember anyone else.
No, yeah, that's why I forgot about the thing while I was at work, and I just remembered him, and that was probably 2000, well, 17-ish or somewhere in there. I can't remember exactly, but
Yeah,
somewhere in there. I'm thinking.
throughout our relationship, we started dating in 95, and here we are. So
Mhm.
we got married in 2000. We have two kids through adoption that are 15 and 12, just to give people a review. What do you think has been most helpful when we have met with each other in couples counseling? what would you say the most important goals have been of couples counseling, and how successful were we at meeting those goals?
I mean, I guess the benefit of it is that, if you're going to counseling, presumably there's something going on with you. There's some tension, there's some conflict, there's something negative happening. And so I guess the benefit, if something like that's happening, the benefit of counseling is that it gives you a space where, almost as if like that stuff can kind of be put to the side, and you can just, assuming you're open to it. I mean, people need to be open to it. People need to be open to having this
Yeah.
person talk to them and having conversations led by this person. But assuming you're open to it, it gives you a space where you can kind of put that conflict or put that tension aside and actually try to like hash out what's going on. I don't know. I don't really like the term safe space. That seems to be overused, but it's kind of in that, it's a space in which you can feel free. So you can feel free to discuss stuff and start getting into the things that are causing the tension or causing the arguments or causing the conflict without fear of escalating the conflict by doing so. So I guess that's what it is. It gives you that space to kind of air the grievances, but in a way that by airing them, you're not going to make things worse, presumably.
Well, it has to be emotionally safe or people will not take risks.
Right.
Yeah. So that's what I usually mean by safe space. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm assuming people are going to be physically safe with each other, but I can't be in a relationship, a therapeutic relationship in which I think there's any verbal abuse going on either. I will definitely name it as I see it or hear about it. And it's important whether I do that in individual or couples counseling. But 9 out of 10 couples will come for help with communication, whether they've been dating, whether they've been married, whether they're single sex, had couples, like it doesn't matter. Communication is hands down the top issue that couples work on. Some of the sources of conflict are going to be really common, like finances, kids, lack of sex, lack of good quality sex. So, there's all kinds of topics that we review when meeting with couples, but I usually tell them, meet with me a few times. And that's just to make sure I'm a good match. I do that in individual versus couples counseling. Same rule, but in couples counseling, the caveat is I don't know if it's been researched or statistical, but about 80% of couples are mostly done by the time they reach couples counseling. And so that first 3 sessions for couples counseling is actually to define whether we're staying in this relationship or exiting the relationship. And most of my couples are really committed to working on the relationship. And so when they decide that I'm a good person to work with, then they trust me with that, part of their process. And we continue working beyond the 3 sessions. I have had one couple who one person was out and just needed that 3 sessions to help her partner wrap his head around the fact that they were done. It was really hard, very difficult to see, but I ended up doing, I think, some really good individual work with him in the end. But yeah, so it's a tough thing. Did you want to say anything else about what our process has been like in terms of working on communication, or are there other things that we've worked on that you thought was beneficial in couples counseling?
Well, I mean, I guess I'd say, just like you mentioned, that other person who said that we seem respectful toward each other, or more respectful than a lot of other people that she's seen are toward each other. And I think that going into it with that mindset, or with that temperament, or view of the other person, that I think does allow us to be productive, because we can have productive conversations, because yeah, we're not going to a meeting and start and like arguing with each other or being disrespectful or anything. We're actually being very respectful and trying to figure out what's going on. And so I think that, so you're asking about our process. Well, I think our process has been one of one that involves mutual respect and a mutual desire to sort of figure out what's going on.
That makes sense. I think that could be even a benefit to check in with each other, like just like roses and thorns, like what's going well, what's not going well, and what do we have to work on, but also like what's working in our relationship and what's not working that we want to move toward. Because I think just the awareness of it really does help people grow. And in couples, when you're asking what we can be working on and what we can be focused on, it helps you grow toward each other. So that's really important, whether you're in therapy or not. So I think there's a lot of good work that people can do individually with their own individual therapist on the dynamic in the relationship. Because I think dynamics only exist insofar as we participate in them, right? So if we change our behavior in response to something our partner is doing that's annoying or just causing difficulty or stress in our lives, we can thereby change the whole dynamic of the relationship. I think couples counseling is much more effective because then you know that person is on board and at least open to trying to change things. But I just think that's really important. I always tell people that you can make a big difference in your relationships by doing individual work on oneself, because truly we only have control over ourselves. But it is nice when a partnership comes together with the goal in mind of working together on shared goals. So if there are individual goals, I usually refer people out to their individual therapist. And so it can definitely become a lot of meetings if somebody's working really hard on their own history, particularly if it involves trauma. They can be going to weekly individual therapy or biweekly therapy, but then come every 2 weeks to couples therapy as well. So that can get really emotionally taxing at times. So we really do need to pace ourselves. And it depends, on what is coming up for people within couples therapy that can be better addressed in individual therapy, I think. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to share? I know we had uncovered some journals in which we had been writing about each other at the same time when we were dating or when we started to date. Do you happen to have those?
I do not have those right now.
We can do that in part two. That's okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
It's okay. I appreciate you taking responsibility. So as we're just fitting this in between a very busy work and camp schedule of our kids. So with that being said, any last words about encouraging others to participate in couples counseling?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just say that yeah, assuming you're in a long-term relationship, there are going to be probably times that are up, there are times that are down, and in the relationship, and so certainly attending therapy during one of those times where things are a little down can be helpful. I mean, you said sometimes people decide in the therapy we're done and we're out, but assuming that you're planning to stay in the relationship, it can be a good time to sort of regroup and sort of figure out what's going on, why it's down, what's happening, and see if you might be able to sort of right your ship. So
Yeah, I'll just say as a last word, actually, I was just talking to somebody about this amazing program for people who deal with infidelity, which we've been really fortunate to not have to deal with. There is a program called Affair Recovery. And I do think supplemental resources are very important. So Affair Recovery is a great program. It's like 13 to 18 weeks, depending on if you're the, offender of infidelity or on the receiving end. And I've known a number of people now that have successfully completed it and really stayed committed to their relationship and just feel like they can get through anything as hard as it is. So I really, don't want people to think that we're saying the only way to be successful in a relationship is without infidelity. I think we're just very fortunate and privileged that we haven't had that conflict. We've certainly had our share of struggles. And I think there's some other good resources we've looked at together, actually, 8 Dates by the Gottmans. We've done a few chapters in that. The first chapter is on trust and commitment. There's other chapters on family and finances and things that cause conflict in relationship. But then there's also this great series of books called Come As You Are and She Comes First. And there's amazing resources on keeping your sex life energetic and exciting, even in the later years of marriage, which has been really a wonderful, addition to our resources. Are there any other resources you would recommend to anyone that's struggling in their relationship?
I mean, I'm not really the expert on resources, so no, I don't have anything to offer.
There's also a couple of podcasts, particularly Dan Savage's Savage Love. He has an amazing podcast. And the author of Come As You Are, which is escaping me right now, she also has a podcast. So those are super helpful. But if people are dealing with infidelity, I think Esther Perel has a lot of really good resources. And she especially talks about just the ways we need to change and wrap our minds around having new definitions and parameters around relationships, and really captures the essence of just the commitment to oneself and our love. So lots of good resources out there. It might even be on our coffee table, though, in terms of the couples quizzes. Is that what it's called? Is that what the couples quizzes was called? The book, we would look at it and it's like 4 pages of questions you and I would fill out.
Yeah, it's the couples therapy workbook, I think. Is
No,
that
that's
it?
not we haven't done that
No,
one yet.
that's not it.
Well,
Oh no, it's quizzes for couples. Quizzes for couples. Yeah.
but quizzes for couples, easy peasy stuff, very low stakes, and that's been really good. So we'll continue this conversation at another time when we have
Okay.
more time. Maybe we should actually look at that. You should pack that workbook for our vacation. Maybe we can look at it while we're away and then report back on part 2. And I definitely want to look at our journals again, because I thought it was really cool that we were both journaling and processing with ourselves when we had started dating, because we didn't know if we were going to date, and here we are. So thank you for your help, podcast. And I'll see you later.
Okay.
Love you.
Love you too. Bye.
Bye.